meeting. Okay, cool. So do a screen share. Okay, guys, let's get started. So there are, as I was starting this, so there are three topics I want to cover. So just to give a like idea for some of these people who are starting with the Vedas, it is how broad of topics that the Vedas cover, and then also some people go with the notion that the Vedic sounds do not have a meaning. Like I saw one of the persons commenting on this thing that saying that the Vedic sounds are the starting sound of galaxies. I don't know where people get these concepts. So galaxies do not have a sound, so sound requires air to propagate. And so the Vedic the verses, most of them you would be able to understand it. Again, we will go through some of them with Sanskrit knowledge. It is understandable. It's not like meaningless words. These are strong meanings, and these also written by rishis. Again, in Hinduism, there is no this thing of divine this thing, because the human is divine ourselves, and in fact, there is a Atma Puja in every puja that comes in. So there is no distinction between what is brought by human and what is brought by God, like because humans are God. And all these Vedic mantras, they are brought by rishis, and they have been over time, over thousands of years, and not sort of like accepting that it is like work of great rishis. It's a great disservice to our ancient traditions and so on. So just want to cover a couple of those aspects, and then second we will get into the Upanishadic part of it, the Prashna Upanishad especially, and then finally we will get into the sort of the harmony, the last shukta of Rig Veda, Aikamati Shukta. Aishwarya, do you have a question? I see a hands raised up.
Yeah, sorry, Balaji. I don't know. I was thinking of calling you Balaji G, but you already have a G in your name. So, anyway, so yeah, I mean, I have heard that Vedas are called Apaurushaya, right? That they like nobody has actually written Vedas. They were there since beginning, and like they are not even created by anyone or something like that. So could you like elaborate or share your thoughts on that? What does that mean, and how what are the beliefs of people around that?
Okay, so my knowledge on this thing, so again, it's not conclusive, or so I'm a student myself, but from what I
I
know,
would like to,
yes, Surya, I
if
want to.
I could elaborate. As per the Mimamsa, Vedanta, and Nyaya too, it is believed that they do not have an author. In the Samhita itself, in Asya Sukta, it comes in the very first mandala, it says that the mantras actually already exist. It says Parame Vyomana, it exists in the Parame Vyomana. Richo Akshare Parame Vyomana. That's the meaning. So rishis are normally drashtas of the mantras, is what is believed, because they themselves write in, even if you consider rishis as the author of the mantras, they themselves says that mantras already exist. And they are just the ones who just see it and write it down, is what it is believed, because they themselves have written it. So we can't just directly say that rishis are direct authors, because they themselves do not claim to be authors. That is there. But these mantras did exist. Because if you see the, yeah, if you see the Mimamsa, that is Purva Mimamsa, that is not the Vedanta part, there also it is believed that these have existed always. Means even before creation, they say, they don't say it's a vibration of the universe, or no such theory. But these existed, the word existed, because according to Mimamsa, the word is more important. The sound is different, the word is important as per the Mimamsa Sutras of Jaimini. So these existed before is what believed. Proving is different thing, but it is believed as per our Puranas. You can take Mahabharata Ramayana also, give explaining these things, why it is Apaurusheya. Agamas also give it like that. So it is there. You can say rishis are the seers of the mantras. That's what we say. We say. Kavi are normally seers. Drashta.
So just to add to this thing, the concepts have existed for a long time, and then the rishis gave the sort of the voice to it, and there are again various
So I think
places.
the audio,
Okay.
I think there's some type of disturbance in the middle. I think so.
Okay. So I don't know. So I think this room I'm a little bit far from my modem. So that's probably why. Is it a little bit better? Or if not, I'll try to move closer to my modem. Okay. You
Yeah,
guys.
because sometimes your video also freezes.
Okay. So let me.
I don't know if it's just problem with my this thing, or if anybody else is also witnessing the same, they can also see. Yeah, now it's a bit better, but it gets stuck in between.
Okay.
It does get
So
stuck
let
in
me
my
move to a
end.
different part of the home. So as I said, the router is probably like more than 100 feet away from this part of the home. I'll go to a different, just give me 2 seconds. So in the meantime, like again, if anybody has other thoughts on the Apurusha, this thing, which is again, it's a source of a lot of debate. Again, you take a look at it and let me, in the meantime, try to move to a different location.
So, Surya, when you said that they are not authors
Yeah.
of the Vedas, then is it like they're saying that the knowledge always existed, and now we are just transmitters of the knowledge? Is that what?
I don't know how to put it in way, because there's not much given on what it is. Because see, knowledge means all type of knowledge will be knowledge. Let it be the lower or higher. Vedas are only the specific knowledge, because Vedas normally deal with what you call as Rita.
So, we will again. So this is a complex topic of debate that went on for a long time. But one part that we can see again in this today's Shuktam that we will cover itself is, so this is the very first book of Rig Veda, and Rig Veda is usually considered as the oldest of Indian traditions. But even in that, it actually goes into says that in the older these devas are sort of like praised with the older text. So it is sort of like even the Rig Veda's first book doesn't claim to be the first or the origin of this thing. So these mantras should have been around for a long time, and then these were collected over various times. So that's sort of like we can make a balance in that side. But then if we go into the Apurusha side, it sorry. My audio is still a problem?
No, your audio is not a problem. And one more thing, the claiming of Rig Veda being actually the oldest doesn't suit well, because Rig Veda itself, the very first mandala, the fourth sukta itself mentions the Yajurveda and Sama Veda. So it looks like these three existed together. Atharva Veda, yes, it did come later because there's a reason. There are various stories that Indra gave this Veda, or it is Rudra's mouth it comes. So it is various stories are dealt with it. But we know that these three Vedas didn't have any differentiation between which is the oldest. They're just different concepts they have.
And there is a lot of like cross references between one to another. So again, we don't want to sort of like sidetrack on this conversation on the time order and all those things. These are still source of debate. At this point, we will try to avoid that particular debate. So if you look into this Shanti Shukta, the Anubhadra Shukta, and then before we start with that thing, so just a quick the Guru Vandanam. So Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Kshakshat Parabrahma, Dasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Sada Shiva Shamarambam, Sankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Parambaram. So in Vedic tradition, there is always this the first respect to the teacher. Again, for my traditions that I've gone through with multiple gurus, this is Adi Shankara has been the ultimate guru. And Adi Shankara was also the key person who helped revive the Vedic traditions in the sort of 6th to 8th centuries, and then whose work was in turn used by many later saints. And they've also, even when they disagreed with this Advaita Vedanta traditions, they still see his role as a key person in bringing the Vedic ideas and then the interpretations important. And then before we start like the Rig Veda, for each Veda there is this this mantra to be before we get into that, so there's the Vedas have particular set of rules and traditions how they should be chanted. And for Rig Veda, there is again this mantra. So we will just quickly chant it before we get into the actual mantra. Sakshan Mula Pramanaya Vishnu Ratnira Tejase Aya Adyaya Sarva Vedanam Rig Vedaya Namo Namaha. So in this tradition, so for each Veda, when we cover it, we have to start with that the sort of the prayer mantra before we actually get into the particular aspect. So here we will be looking at the Anubhadra Shukta. So like in many of these Vedic this thing, so there is multiple sort of like places this Anubhadra comes in. And I will sort of like keep pausing because I don't want to chant with mine too, because I've learned only a couple of these rigs in this Shuktam. So I will have one of the sort of this thing playlist played, but this is entered in a
Sir,
Shukta
this
Veda
video
tradition.
which you will be playing, right? That is from Kanva Shaka. So
Correct.
I think there will be some differences
So
should be there.
exactly. So that's what I wanted to bring in. So this is this Anubhadra Shuktam comes in multiple locations, and one of them comes in Shukla Yajurveda. So the content is similar, but then there are slight changes in the pronunciation. We'll go through. So I just want to stress on the aspect that there are like sort of cross linkages between the Vedas. So I'll start with this thing, but in the rendered in the Shukla Yajurveda tradition. And this is a prayer that looks for sort of prosperity and auspiciousness, and it's a key thing in many of our starting the pujas.
भद्राः क्रतवो यन्तु विश्वतो दब्धासो अपरेतासवद्भिदाः देवानो यथा सदमिद्वृधे असन्नप्रायुवो रक्षितारो दिवे दिवे.
So so this is the very first thing that we'll look at. So the again the terminologies that we still it is still there. For instance, Bhadra here is like auspicious auspiciousness. Deva, again we use the thing. This is to refer to the gods. Rakshita, again we refer to the protection. So this very first thing, it starts from our auspicious works. Let them not be stopped by anything. And then this devas we are looking at, let them not turn away from us. Let them protect us day by day. And this is not for me. I'm looking at for the whole world. So these Vedic mantras usually start from the world as this thing. So they are praying for the world. Let the auspiciousness spread. Let the auspiciousness come for everyone. And so this is the kind of the positive thinking that often goes with many of these Vedic mantras. And again, the text is fairly understandable. And again, here we are dealing with a text that is at least 3,500 years old, and we can read it as though this was written recently, because many of these terminologies and this text we still use today. So let me go to the second mantra again. I want to cover some of the aspects of this thing. So the second one, it right away gets into the benevolent favor of Vedas, Devas, and one of the very important thing they get into is more specific. So first we ask for auspiciousness. Now we looked at, okay, can we bring longevity? So this whole Shuktam, there's a lot of emphasis on health, wellness, and longevity for people. I see Rahul raising hands up. Do you have a question?
Hello.
Yes, Rahul. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Hi, Balaji. Hi, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everyone who are from different places. Actually, I've been, writing a couple of comments in the chats since from start of the beginning of this session. So basically, recently I heard the Garud Puran, which is again a part of Vedas. Um, So while I was up, due to some unfortunate incident in my house, I had to hear the Garud Puran. For what reason do you heard? I lost my father recently, so that's the reason. And so I got interest something towards the Vedas. So wanted to understand. Maybe this question would be for everyone. Um, where to start? Because from your slide two, it was too complex for at least for me to understand what it is. I mean, obviously, you guys are scholars in the areas of the field, so it must be easy for you guys to correlate and communicate easily. But for freshers like me, and obviously there are millions of people in the world would be in the similar range. Um, where to start? I have asked a question like, where's the flow? Is there any kind of flow chart? What is the distinguish between Vedas and the Purans? Are they same? Are they different? Or something like that. So Srinivasan has shared me a couple of links, but even that is too complex. That this hierarchy is too complex. The hierarchy says a lot. Okay,
Uh,
these are the four Vedas, and then whatnot. So, do you have Balaji and Surya and Jamin? Do you have anything, something that starts from start and creates an interest so that people can have areas of interest? Because there are people who has interest only in certain areas of the Vedas and maybe not all.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
when we look at Vedas, there is no flow as such. So the Vedas are not like scriptures. So for instance, like Bhagavad Gita, it is a scripture in that there is a particular order. So there is a question, and then it goes into answering the Arjuna's question. Whereas the Vedas
Mhm.
themselves do not have any such order because it covers almost every topic. For instance, in Atharvana Veda, the Samhita part itself, there are sort of like chapters that handle how do you cure jaundice or how do you treat dysentery and so on. So
Mm.
there is no this one starting point from which you get into. There are multiple sort of like topics. So you can see Vedas like a library, like that has medicine, that has things including like ritual performance, there are like philosophy and so on. And so like how do we provide order? So this is one of the things that I've also been thinking about, and the reason why we started this particular order is to look at so starting from something that we can relate to, like we need prosperity and we need tangible things in our family, like and one of the things many of us worry about is health. So starting from this thing, this Shuktam, which is relatively simpler, it asks for positivity, and then it also introduces the God. So I'm trying to look at a particular flow in this thing to start out simpler. The other way to look at it is like not enter into Vedas itself and then start from Itihasas, the Ramayana and Mahabharata. So they are actually even better starting points even before Puranas, because they cover some of the ideas in a much more nicer way. For instance, the Yaksha Parva in Mahabharata. So these things would be a starting point. But if you want to look at Vedas, then this some of these things that we will look at in this study group, they might be the sort of the simpler ones. And this particular Shukta, it also starts introducing various gods or various key gods of the Vedas. So we just went into the second rig. So the first one is like, let there be like auspiciousness that comes from every quarter, which again is a fairly simple, straightforward concept that we are looking at. And then we look at like the longevity. So you try to follow this particular flow and then see if that works for you.
Muy muchas tender.
And if I could add one more thing. Normally, before starting Vedas, right, you can take the Bhashya of Bhatta, Bhaskar, or Sayana. Both of them, what they say is to understand the Vedas, you first need to read the two Itihasas and all the 18 Puranas. Especially Bhatta Bhaskaracharya, he emphasizes, and Bhatta Bhaskara is someone whom Sayana considered even a greater authority than himself on the Vedic text, because Bhatta Bhaskara uses Nirukta too. And Nirukta also says one of the interpretation of the Vedic mantras is through Itihasa and Purana. So to learn first it is Itihasa Puranas. Itihasas, it will give you a basic idea because normally Itihasas don't go much deep into philosophy. Because there are some philosophies that Purana touch very deeply, like Vishnu Purana, Shiva Purana. They touch certain mantras very deeply. Indirect meaning is given there. The Vedas, what it is said is they're very mystical. In what you say, the writing way, you can have many interpretations of one single word. So that's why they say Itihasa Purana, then the Vedas. But normally what happens, Vedas first you by heart. Because to even go to the meaning, right, you need to first learn something known as Nirukta, then you need Vyakarna knowledge because each swara gives a different meaning. And this is mentioned in Panini's Vyakarna too. So it is a very, difficult and a deep one to understand the proper meaning because I can just read one line. Without swaras, it will give you a different meaning. But with swaras, it can give you a meaning of a question or it can give you a meaning of a philosophical way. So basically, normally you can start with Ramayana, Mahabharata. Then any one Purana also, if you read, you can almost get an idea of what these Vedas will be of.
So one of the Puranas I would suggest if you are starting from Puranas is Markandeya Purana. This is again this thing something that that is connected. Markandeya is also connected to Mahabharata. This thing, or Brahma Purana is also relatively smaller. Whereas if you take like Skanda Purana or something, then it becomes very large and complex in itself. But
one more recommendation, sir, you can say Agni Purana too, because there are a lot of things dealing with the Vedas too in Agni Purana.
Agni Purana, yeah. And Vishnu Purana also, like, it covers some of the lineages and genealogy. If you look at like the rishis, how these the rishi origin and this thing. So if you look at like the Vishnu Purana goes. Garuda Purana, as like Rahul this thing, so it is used only in very specific this thing. So usually during morning. So other times, usually we do not touch Garuda Purana because some of this thing, it takes more complex topics which in the normal course of things we do not touch it. Okay, so coming back on to this thing, so this so we have now started with this Shanti Shuktam or Anubhadra Shuktam. So in this we ask for auspiciousness, but whom are we like referring to? So this is where this third thing comes in. And then so here we talk about 9 key this thing, the devatas. And this thing, so including Bhaga, Mitra, Aditi, Daksha, Aryaman, Varuna, Soma, Ashwins, and Saraswati. So here Aditi has a very special role. We will look at in the last portion of this thing. So Aditi is considered sort of the divine mother. And Daksha is considered as one of the key sort of like gods of the Prohits and so on. And Daksha also comes in various Puranas. One of the key things with the Daksha is this thing. So he, his daughter Dakshayani or Sati, so she married Shiva. And then Daksha again conducts a great yajna. Again, Daksha is one of the key Prajapatis for the this thing, conducting yajnas and so on. But then in that he doesn't invite Shiva, and so that creates a whole bunch of the things. So after that, Daksha's sort of role and all those things get a bit diminished post then. But then until then, Daksha is considered as a Prajapati, one of the creators, and Daksha has a lot of important roles in the Vedic this thing. We look at then the Mitra. Mitra is again a very important, interesting god. So Mitra is usually the god of treaties and contracts. And Mitra is a sort of a very sort of friendly thing to this thing. So the reason why we named the company Mitra is, again, this is one of the gods from which we know a lot about our Vedic traditions. Because most of these Vedic traditions, they it is hard to do historical dating. But then one lucky thing sort of happened. So there was a war between the Hattusha Empire in the Hittite Empire in this thing in Turkey, and then the Mitanni Empire in Iraq. So these two empires, they fought a war 3,500 years ago. And then after the war, they wrote a treaty. And then the treaty, they start with Mitrasya, and then they go into various gods, including Indra and so on. But this is actually we were able to sort of like properly date that piece of stones, this thing, and then from that there is a lot of like indirect dating of the Vedas. So Mitra is a key one in that thing, because Mitra was a god of treaties. And then Aryaman is a god of sort of like culture and traditions in that. And then the Ashwins are it's a pair of gods. They are the divine physicians of the world. And Saraswati, she is the goddess of learning. So these are different gods. Again, like some people we try to think like the Vedic gods purely in terms of natural this thing. All the gods in front of you in this thing, these are all gods that have like specific purpose in the society. Somebody enforcing the culture, somebody bringing the medicine, somebody looking at treaties and contracts, somebody making sure that the yajnas are conducted properly, and so on. So these are like far more complex things than what people sometimes like try to simplify this into, okay, we are talking about natural items. None of these are natural actually gods in that sense. And people have been working.
I would like to add one more thing.
Yeah.
If you take the etymology of Aryaman, right, is very interesting. Mitra is already for friendship, but Aryaman, the meaning comes as a friend who always hugs you. It's a very interesting meaning. We don't know why the deity is named such, but Aryaman is called, the meaning of Aryaman. It is a friend who always hugs you to his chest. He keeps you to his chest. It's a very good meaning. You see, the gods, each name, they have a very beautiful meaning.
Absolutely.
Be it Vishnu, Rudra, Indra, Aditi, Saraswati, Aryaman. Aryaman, you see, it's such a positive name, right? Mitra is just a friend. But Aryaman is a what type of friend? It's a very specified friend who hugs you, and not just a hug. It is a hug to the chest. Means he keeps your head to his chest. So like showing that they're very intimate friends. So Aryaman is, you can take the etymology, is also suits his what you say, his work, etc.
And then
Sorry to bother, come in the middle.
No worries. Thanks for the clarification, Surya. So this is these are images that were generated by the AI. Again, these are some of the like sort of new uses of AI we can make from the descriptions of the Vedas. For instance, the Pushan, the first god, he also doesn't have teeth, at least after the Daksha event. So when Daksha did his large yajna, did not invite Shiva. So there was this major this thing like, and Sati commits, immolates herself and so on. And after that, the Pushas, this thing, the teeth was said to be broken. So his representations often are without the teeth, at least after that event. And so his offerings, right now when we do to Pusha, it is usually with liquid things like curd and so on, and not with solid ones. The first one is the Pusha, and then the second one is Aryaman, third one is Mitra, and the fourth one is Dyava or Dyau. This is considered, he's considered one of the key fathers or the Lord of the heaven in that this thing. So you can see the Dyau, and usually he's considered along with his consort, the Prithvi, down below. And one of the again, the interesting part about the Vedas is the abundance of both Rishikas who wrote the Vedas, as well as the various characters, Devatas who come in. So these are not secondary characters. Oftentimes they are very important characters. For instance, Aditi on the left, she is extremely important. So she is considered as a divine mother, not just like for birthing a divine person, but then she herself is considered as a key player in a number of activities. So here we see the role for both male and female gods given almost in equal terms. Again, Saraswati, the goddess, she's another thing. So she survived through the time and various traditions and so on. She was a very important goddess in the Vedic time. She's a very important goddess now. Whereas the other goddess, sort of like we are so at least in the non-Vedic traditions, we are using her lesser. but Saraswati sort of like spanned both the Vedic and non-Vedic traditions. So she's in that sense a timeless goddess. So we come back, come into the now more and more specific things. So there is this health is in this particular group of rishis, they consider health as a very, very important aspect of it. So they actually pray to the Vayu for bringing the medicine, and we pray to the Mother Earth Prithvi, and then the Father of Heaven Dyav. So this Dev and Prithvi are often brought together, Dyava Prithvi, in the kind of thing. So the mother and father, this thing, so mother of earth and the father of heaven. And then there is this the juice of Soma. Again, this is like a debate. It could derail this discussion. But this Soma is a very, very important aspect, very highly debated in the scholarly community, what Soma is and what is the purpose of it. Some people, again, using the modern this thing, they try to make Soma as a liquor, whereas other people, they bring in Soma as a medicinal thing that brings in clarity. So the nature of Soma is a sort of like a highly debated one, but we can see this Soma, whether it some people see it as liquor or it is seen as a medicinal thing. It's an important portion of treatment for the Vedic people, and then they pray to this again, this Ashwins, the Ashwin Kumaras, for bringing health. It's an important. We'll look at like in 2 verses later the health part of it once again. Why that is that constantly keeps coming back again and again in the Vedic this thing. So now we now go. We have looked at many of these devatas, but there is 2 very, very important devatas that again keeps coming in multiple portions of Rig Veda. There is Indra and Pushan. Indra is like now very well known, again the lord of thunder and so on. But this Pushan, this all-knowing Pushan, who's often like presides over marriages and so on. This for some reason his role has gone sort of like diminished in the non-Vedic community, but in Vedic this thing there is a Pushan is a very, very important this thing. And again, this month's sort of presiding deity is also the Pushan. So Pushan, we look at again, bring this thing in terms of he's a defender and bringing the riches to us. And now this particular mantra is now very, very important of this entire system. It comes in again dozens of places in the Vedas itself. The Swastino Indra Vriddhastrava, Swastina Pusha Vishwavedah, Swastinasdarksho Arishtanemihi, Swastino Brihaspadir Dadatu. So this particular mantra, again, there is a slight change in order. We will look at in Atharvana Veda and other places. There's a small change in order. They do that. But then here we pray for to this 4 key gods. The Indra, who is highly praised and who's like so Indra usually like he can be sort of like we can convince him by praise. And then here we look at Pushan. Pushan is usually termed with all-knowing one, and again Pushan, you can also see him as a friend. So it's a very friendly god in that thing, non-harming, whereas Indra can get quite angry. And the third god we look at again, Tarksha. It is there is again a lot of debate on what god Tarksha refers to in this shloka. Some people see it as referring to sun, while some people see it as referring to the Garuda. But then his name is Arishtanemi. So his chariot cannot be defeated. Sort of like you can call him as undefeatable or unblemished. This Tarksha. So Surya, in your classes, like did they teach Tarksha as Surya or Garuda or some other god?
It's normally means even if you take bhashas, it looks like Surya itself, because when you take the Saura Suktam in Rig Veda too, his chariot is very much praised. Because other than Surya, it is Indra, and Indra is already first mentioned. So it normally looks at Surya itself. Tarksha, I think even in Nirupta, Shri Yaskacharya has given it as a name for Surya. So you can also interpret it as Surya. It's like an open to interpretation. But since the chariot is also talk,
In
it normally
Purana,
looks
since
like Surya.
the Starksha comes as a bird, so that's where there is this multiple
See,
interpretations.
in Puranas, that is why they say what happens is like Suparna, if you take in the Vedas, it's actually Agni in the Vedas. It's a Agni in the form of a bird. But in the Puranas, it is also a name of Garuda. So it depends on the sentence. Like I said, it gives a word, like the Nirukta gives one word having 10 meanings. So depending on the sentence, we can take the meaning.
So,
So here
just
it would be appropriate as Surya only in my view also. That
so
is
that
Surya.
and again, the context also, the Surya would make more sense, given that we are
Yeah.
talking about four important gods of the Vedic this thing. So, like rather than, because Garuda is not a god in the Vedic this thing, so Surya would be.
Yeah. And
uh,
one more thing is Garuda is not mentioned. Other than Taittiriya Aranyaka, we do not find him in any other mention of Garuda itself. So it would not be that logical to take it as Garuda.
Absolutely.
It will also be there.
So Brihaspati, so he is sort of this key priest for the Devas, and he is the one who for Devas, many of the key yajnas and this thing. So he presides over this thing, Brihaspati. And so these four people, we are asking for their blessings and their provider of welfare. Next one, we look at again important group of gods called Maruts. So Marudas, this is they are sort of this young warriors of Indra. So oftentimes they are seen as storm gods. And again, there are different interpretations on what they do. One of the interpretations is these are like this sort of like Indra's soldiers who can get things done. So you can see them as like special forces, and they are like sons of Prishni. Prishni is often she is considered as the consort for Rudra, and she brings bountiful things, especially like harvest and so on. And his Maruts are often considered as the sons of Prishni. So in this
If I may come in here, just one thing.
Yeah.
Prishni, right? Like you said, this is like a misconception because in the entire Vedas, we do not get Prishni as a wife of Rudra. That is a very important thing. Prishni, rather, if you see Sayanacharya in his Bhashya too, he gives it as Diti. He gives the terminology Prishni as Diti in his Bhashya because it comes in when he is giving for 114th Sukta, Idam Pitre Marutam Uchyate for Rudra Sukta. There he says Prishni is actually Diti. He doesn't take Prishni as wife of Rudra because we do not find even a one line where Prishni is said to be wife of Rudra. Because it is important. Like Indrani, we know how she is wife of Indra because it is mentioned in the 10th mandala too. And it's mentioned in various other mantras.
Absolutely.
Prishni
So this is
directly
where,
doesn't have.
that's why
Yeah.
I removed the reference to like her as a consort. Well, but there is in some traditions it is used as a this thing. But again, the way we can see her as the goddess of bounty in
Yeah.
bringing that. And again, we finally get into this Vishwadeva. So there's oftentimes when we want to collectively refer to the Vedas, Devas as a whole. So then we use the term Vishwadevas, which is this collected assembly of all the Vedas, Devas. And now we'll come to this Badram Karnebi.
I
So
think there's
this is,
somebody asking a doubt here, right?
Yeah,
so, yes.
yeah, I wanted to ask, like, if Prishni, like, suppose just in case the Prishni here actually referred to the wife of Rudra, so does that mean Prishni is like Sati or Parvati ji? Because Rudra is
Yeah, that's why I
Mahadev.
told it doesn't come because etymologically, right? Because we should take bhashyas for this. Sayana Bhashya, which normally even the West, sometimes they say, oh, it's the best one. They deliberately, they don't give this. Prishni nowhere, see, that is why I keep saying Prishni nowhere has any reference to Rudra's wife. Rather, it is said that when her children were born, they were dead. That's what Sayana gives a Vyakhyana, that Indra kills them in her, Garbha itself. So when Rudra is roaming along with Parvati, it is what Sayana says. There, Parvati takes out of compassion. She says, "You give life to this Prishnima." So what does Rudra do? He gives them life. That's why Rudra is known as Pitar Marutam. He is the father of Maruts because he gave them life. And Prishni, being Diti, is also known as mother of Maruts. So that is what even Vyakhyana we get, even by Sayanachari also. And even by others like Bhatta Bhaskara too, we get this. Wherever this Prishni comes, because see, later also in the Yajurveda, you don't get much about Prishni. And everywhere, wherever Prishni is mentioned, never with Rudra. Together, you don't get.
Absolutely.
Only one place we get, but that is, again, that is doing with a different context, not as husband-wife. So we do not get.
Diti, I've heard that Diti is the mother of Asuras.
In Puranas and Itihasa too, Diti is the mother of Maruts also.
Oh,
So
okay.
again, so there is different interpretations. The Vedas is a collected wisdom from a long period of time and a lot of rishis. So there could be different interpretations. But one point I want to stress on this thing is, often in many cultures, people are referred by their fathers. This thing. So he is the son of so and so, son of this father. But oftentimes in Vedic tradition, people we equally use, okay, he is the son of this lady as much as the son of this person. So in fact, even the surnames sometimes it comes in, people are referred by their mothers thing instead of fathers. This kind of like the equality is very hard to see in most other traditions, because in most others, and in fact to some extent to the present day India, this thing, so we talk about, okay, this person is the son of this one. Here we the reason why I wanted to stress on this Prishnis, this thing is, now you're talking about like not just Maruts referring to the fathers, this thing, the Maruts mother we are referring. So this mother as an important, this thing, you being a son of, okay, Kaushalya, son of this person, that is as much used as, okay, you're son of this father. So this importance in terms of bringing the female force, as in, that's one of the things I wanted to stress on, especially for this mantra, this rig. So now this
one more thing, if you don't mind. Vishwe Devas, right? Just a note to all. It has two meanings. One, it is used as collectively gods. In a separate context, in other contexts like in Aranyakas, they refer to other separate group of gods, another group like Ganas. Vishwe Devas are also collectively known as gods together, all the gods together, and they're also a separate Ganas too. So here it is all the gods itself. In some context, it means a Gana. It is a type of a group of gods. They perform certain functions. That is also there. One more you can add that.
Absolutely. And again, Surya mentioned Nirukta. So Nirukta, I can see it as a dictionary. So each of the Vedic traditions, like Rig Vedic tradition and Yajurvedic, and Yajurvedic, again within that Taittiriya and Kanva Shaka and so on. So each of these schools, they have their own dictionaries in which they try to clarify what this particular thing could mean in. So oftentimes when we have to try to interpret, we have to go into the dictionary, the Nirukta, and then the Vyakarana is a sort of grammar. Again, because we not just need dictionary, sometimes we need to know how this, the grammatical way in which it is. So then we have to go into the Vyakarana to understand the meanings of some of these. So now we go into the Badram Karnebi. So this is again used quite widely. So this Badram Karnebi Shruniyama Devaha Badram Pashema Kshabir Yajatraha Stirirangai Shuštuvagum Sastanubihi Vyashema Deva Yitam Yatayuhu. So this is something we now look at the positivity again coming from us. We let us hear with our ears, and let the ears hear what is good. And again, the terms itself, many of them is sort of like very fresh and understandable. For example, Badram is again used widely as a sort of like auspiciousness and good. And then we look at Badram Karnebihi. Karnam is like ear, and again, like Mahabharata character Karna is like the guy born with either a deformed ear or ear with earrings by birth. So this Karnam, and then Shrunuyama is like sort of hearing. So let the ears hear only what is good. And Dhram Pashyema is like again looking at it. Again, this again we use in Indian languages quite widely. Even in Tamil, we look at like Pakaradu. It's like the which is again comes from this Pashyema, which is like looking at this thing. Let us look the this thing, and then let us have like a long life and sound body, so that we can actually praise this thing. So sort of like we in some sense we can try to convince the devas that, hey, please give me long life. Why do I want a long life? Because I can enjoy and praise you, this thing. So this sort of this nice interplay between, you see this devas as not somebody who's like there to punish you or this thing. You're somebody who's to whom you can confide, you can bring them into your life. And then this becomes an important one. Now, until now we have been asking for longevity. Now we have now, by this time now we have looked at, okay, so the longevity is now we take it for granted. Okay, so we know that devas, they are going to give us longevity, are going to give us 100 years. But then in this 100 years, let my body not become infirm enough that my sons become my fathers. Again, a very, very important piece of this thing. Again, I work in senior care where we deal with patients as old as 102. One of this biggest this thing is, we become like infants once again as we become old, become quite dependent on this. This is something this Vedic seers, they said, please let me not get into that. So give me long life, but then let the long life not be at the cost of my body degrading to a point where I need to be dependent on others. So there are two aspects I want to stress here. One of the things, there is there's misunderstanding that people did not live long in the past. So this living long is something that we invented in the 20th century. That is not true. People actually lived long. The reason why life expectancy in the historic world it was low, it is because of child this thing. So it is people infant mortality was very high. People like in the first 1 to 5 years there is a lot of deaths, and so that is why that brings down the life expectancy quite a bit. But if somebody has survived into their teens, then they're expected to live 60 or 80 years, and it was very common to also look at people living 100 years a few thousand years ago. And this was also, we can also see it in other related civilizations, including in Roman Empire, where they kept meticulous records. There is it is like fairly common for people to live quite into the old age. So that is one aspect we want to look at, sort of the history and then this anthropology of this thing. So this living 100 years is not considered as a very unusual thing for that time. The second one I want to look at is like a society where people worry about sort of like getting very old and dying. It's a society that has like that doesn't fear wars as much. So again, the reason why, in particularly in Western societies, people worry about, okay, what if my money runs out when I'm 90, or what if my children no longer are alive at that point. These are sort of like indications of prosperity. You're prosperous enough that you live to 100 years. Whereas societies where that do not worry about old age, or societies that have wars, because you are not going to live to 60 or 80 or 100. Your wars are going to take care of you before then. So there is this lot of this Vedic mantras that talk about longevity and this thing. Many of these themes are quite relevant to read today. Again, at least in the societies that we are living in, we don't have fear of wars or civil wars or something that's taking out. So we still can expect to live to 70, 80 or 100. And the similar expectation was there. So there is very little sort of fear or worry of wars that is reflected in this thing. So that again sort of like brings in the cultural aspect to the Vedic tradition. And finally, we look at we end this Shuktam. So oftentimes Rigvedic Shuktam. So a Shuktam is a sort of a chapter in Rig Veda. There are, I think, 1024 Shuktams, 1024 or 27.
It depends on calculation of certain people, because there is some give 1005 it goes, some gives 1003, 1002, 10,002. So sorry, 1,000, yeah, correct.
So
it depends.
Absolutely. So we will keep somewhere around 1,000. So different traditions go by how many chapters are there, but they are all very close within 10 or 20. So these are all chapters in a sense, and together it has somewhere around 10,500 rigs or mantras and in total. And Rig Vedic, this thing, it's very structured now. Like across this 10,000 thing, there is a certain structure into this. This again, Rig Veda is very, very famous for this kind of structure. Whereas when we look at like so for example, Taittiriya Brahmana or this thing, the size and this thing of sentences become like quite different because it's written more in prose style. So we were able to build something over thousands of years time across 10,000 plus rigs with a common single structure. And most often, most of these shuktams are often around 10 is a common number in this thing. Again, some shuktams are longer, some are shorter, but usually 10 is a good length of a shuktam that they have used. And this in the 10th, the last one, usually it is sort of like brings in that important concept into this thing. Now we talked about all this devas and Indra and Pushan and so on. Now this one goes into Aditi. It just right away jumps into Aditi is Kadyau. Aditi is where we son. Aditi is not just mother, father, it is the son. Aditi is this various interpretations of this thing, but one of the things, this Vishwadeva Aditi is like, the Aditi itself is all gods. So it jumps into this particular one. So Aditi is given a very, very important role, not just being a mother. Again, here we have to look at like various religious traditions. In the modern larger religious traditions, it is predominantly male. The only female sort of comes in a major religion other than Hinduism is Mary in case of Christianity. But again, in case of Mary, oftentimes, Wolf, you can correct me if I'm wrong, often her role is mainly restricted to being the mother of Jesus, but her role as like sort of teacher or as a somebody who was brought up Jesus in the as an important prophet. So that I have not seen as much stress done to. Whereas in case of Aditi, she's not just seen as a mother, but she's also somebody who was brought in a variety of important aspects to this thing. So her role is wider than just being a mother. This is something very important and unique one in the modern religions of what is present. And here I want to again, there is this in Vedic history, there is this Pancha Jana. So there is in this thing, you talk about Pancha Jana. There is again a lot of debates on what this Pancha Jana refers to. So I will use one of the interpretations that this Pancha Jana of this thing. So this again is a little bit controversial topic on this Pancha Jana, because the Rig Veda itself doesn't actually specify who this Pancha Jana are. Like in later things, it comes into, but this 5 is not the thing, but this Turvashas and Purus are mentioned in various part of Rig, but this 5 are not mentioned together as far as I know. But from piecing the various Puranas and the Vedic tradition together, these sort of 5 dynasties become an important portion of this Vedic this thing culture, the 5 Janas. Jana is sort of like people or classes. The Yadu Vamsha, the Puru Vamsha, the Anu Vamsha, the Drahyu Vamsha, and the Turvasha Vamsha. Yadus, they were in the south and southeast. So again, you can see Delhi as a center, just like what is in today, it is in the today. So you can see center as like Delhi or like, Hastinapur, that environment. So Puru is in the center and the slightly east of this thing. So east of Delhi, like a little bit more in the Gangetic one. The Anu is in the south southwest of this thing. So you can think of like so Gujarat towards this thing. The Drahyu was on the north, the Turvashas on the south, and the Yadu on the south and southeast. So sort of this Vedic geography that comes in. Again, how much south and how much east and this thing is still a matter of debate on this. I want to show you sort of this genealogy of how this dynasties come in. let me just pull up the dynasty chart in and how these.
After your this thing, I would like to add something about this Panchajana, if it's okay.
Yes, Surya, go ahead.
No, you just finish yours, then I will
Okay.
say.
So here we said this genealogy starts from Brahma, and then so the Brahma brings multiple Prajapatis or creators into this thing, including Daksha. Daksha's daughter is again in various this thing that Aditi is seen as a Daksha's daughter. And then so Aditi brings Adityas, the various sons, and then Manu is comes from that, and from Manu we get into Ishwaku. It is the dynasty of Lord Ram, the solar dynasty of Ishwaku this thing. So this is one sort of like stage that goes in from Brahma to Ishwaku, and then again this connects into Ram. Then we look at the Chandra Vamsha, this thing. So the Buddha and Ila, Ila is the goddess, this thing. So they bring in the Chandra Vamsha, which again is a very, very important one in many of this Jana. And then we come into, so again, Nahusha is an important one, which is again mentioned in a number of Puranas and Itihasas. From that, we get into Yayati. Yayati is again a very key person in this whole lineage. From Yayati comes the five key things. So Yayati's sons are this Yadu, Turvashu, Drahyu, and Anus and Purus. From Yayati's two wives, one wife Devyani. Devyani is often seen as a daughter of Shukracharya, and the second wife Sarmishta. So she is the daughter of Brishparva. So these two wives together, they bring in those five key sons, Yadu, Turvasha, Drahyu, Anu, and Puru. They become this key Panchajana. And of this, Puru is a very, very important one again from this thing. From Puru, we get a very important person in the Indian, this thing, that the Bharata. Bharata comes from the Puru clan. And so he's the son of Shakuntala and Dushyanta. This again is made into a very important play by Kalidasa. So from Bharata, we get into Hasti. And he built the Hastinapur, this thing, so that the key sort of capital for this thing. And then from there, we go into Kuru. From Kuru, we get into the Kuru dynasty and Shantanu and so on. So we get into this Mahabharata, this thing. So this chart sort of like connects the various elements of the Vedas as well as Puranas and Itihasas into this thing to bring clarity. Yes, Surya, I want to go.
Yeah. So this Panchajana, as per the Nirukta of Yaskacharya, right? He gives what are these Panchajanas according to Yaska. It is Devas, Asura, Rakshasa, then Gandharvas, and it is Pitr, the Pitr Devatas. So this is what Yaskacharya gives, and this is Nirukta of Yaskacharya is completely for all the four Vedas, so it is considered as a highly authoritative text. So this is what Yaskacharya gives. Sayanacharya for the same Aditir Dyaur, Aditir Antariksham and Panchajana, he gives Bhashas. According to him, the Panchajanas is Deva, Asura, Gandharva, Pitra, and Sarpa he gives. And Apsara also he takes in. He removes sometimes Asura and he puts Apsara, sorry. Yeah. So this is according to Sayana. These are the 5 types of people is what Sayanacharya gives in his Bhashya. And we can take that also. But Nirukta's this thing makes more sense because it was even way older. Yaskacharya was an extremely old veteran scholar. So his interpretation could be taken also as one of the meanings. And it makes sense because these are 5 different important species in the
Absolutely.
scriptures.
So this is where again there is this controversy on. So like again the presence of these 5 people like Yadu, Turvashu, Drihyu, Anu, and Puru, that is not of question. But then this Panchajana refers to these 5 people or this 5 classes, as Surya was talking about the Devas, Asuras, and this thing. So in some of Puranas, it is used in these 5 dynasty ways, whereas the Vedas itself that does not refer anywhere to these 5 people as the Panchajana. So this again, it's a so there are a lot of debates in various topics of this Vedas, of which one of them is like what is this Panchajana refers to in the Vedas. But even if we don't see that Panchajana referring to these five, I just wanted to bring these five people, the sense that they brought this five important dynasties that provided a key this thing to the Vedic history. Yes, Aishwarya, you have a question?
I was interested in knowing where did Anudrahu ruled because of the term below his name. So I want to know where actually the
So
people
this is
are
again, there
from.
is this like interpretations on this thing. So Anu, like again, some of the Puranas is like says us like the Mlecha. So these people on the southwest outside the things. So some people go as well as west as Baluchistan in the this thing. Again in Turvasu, it again goes south. This goes into Yavanas. So again, there is this like some people again historians interpret us as the Ionians. The Yavanas often refers to the Greeks. So they Greeks and Romans were trading through the south because the land route was quite longer and this thing. So it could be that they interactions through the south. It could be the Yavanas and this thing. Whereas Yadu is much more the Indian, or at least the present Indian, this thing, the Yadava thing that is there. Okay, there are different interpretations. This is where we want far more analysis done on the various scripts and so on to understand what this particular things refer to. But it's scope for debate on where this geography particularly lied in.
Because and the two, these were very old, so we can't exactly give Yadu and Puru we can do, because we have a lot of evidence for them to exist in India itself, because they were very, what do you say, influential. And Kuru is even more, that is Purvamsha is even more famous than Yadu, you can say, because the entire Mahabharata is based on them.
Absolutely.
But all the others, but these are mentioned in Mahabharata too. The geography might not be given properly, but they are mentioned.
Absolutely.
You can get to know Anudru, you can get to know they were outside India only, basically, because Mlechas were normally, they didn't want to be a part of Bharata, because Mlechas normally were against the Vedic traditions. So, and they were never inside this Bharata, what is you say, from Afghan to, means from starting from this
Himalaya
Kashmir
to Samudra Paryantam,
yeah, and our Kanyakumari.
So one of the Puranas for geography is like Brahma Purana. So Brahma Purana, it goes into a bunch of the geography, just like Vishnu Purana goes into genealogies and so on. Brahma Purana is often used for this thing. So we can probably like at a later date, we can look at Brahma Purana's geography, this thing. So it goes into different continents, just like the Jambudvipa is our continent. It also goes into the other 6 continents of the world. So we are already running past our time. So this first thing I did not expect to go longer, but then again I think we were able to cover some of the things. So the key themes I want to cover from this one Shuktam. Again, this is one of the 1,000+ Shuktam in Rig Veda Samhita alone. So the first is the abundance of female deities. So this is fairly unique about Hinduism. Most of the religious traditions, they are like male centric. Even the other dharmic traditions, like in terms of Buddha and Bodhisattvas, are predominantly male. All the Mahavira and Tirthankaras are predominantly male. All the Sikh gurus are male. Similarly, like other in the Abrahamic traditions, the patriarchs like the Abraham, Moses, these again later Jesus. So all male this thing. So here we see a sort of like a balance between the female and male deities. And there is a lot of this thing about the positive thinking. So God is not somebody who punishes and sends people into hell and this thing. God is something that we can see them, invoke them at various points of our day, getting into that. And then we also pray for something tangible, including Badram, prosperity and longevity and so on. And then we see the key worry, fear of like living into old age, which sort of shows that they were not as much worried about wars and calamities as much as the itself. And finally, we look at the 2 important rigs in this thing, the 8 and 6. 8 is Badram Karnebi and 6 is Swastina Indra Vriddashtravaha. these become very important one, and they are used extensively. For instance, Taitri Aranyaka, which is a important tradition in Ayurvedic, this thing, that right from its start, it starts from these two things, Badram Karnebi and Swastin in the Stravaha. And Atharvana Vedas, almost all Upanishads in Atharvana Veda, they start from this thing, because this is an important element. But then the only thing is the order is changed. If you look at the order, in the Rigvedic order, we talk about the gods, and then eventually we get into that we are going to be hearing something good. Whereas in the other traditions, the order is changed. Now let us hear something good, let us do something good, let us actually deserve something, then let us call the gods to help us. So this sort of like this change in priority. So you don't want to call God before you actually do the good stuff. Let you hear the good things, you say the good stuff, then you become eligible to call the Indra and other things. So this meaning order is slightly made different, and with a slight change in swaras. When we look at its mentions in Yajurveda, especially the Taitri Aranyakas opening mantra, as well as all the Upanishads of the Atharvana Veda, this becomes an important one. So you can see the cross linkages as well as like different priorities that is used in a different context. So I'll just leave this one question at the end of this thing. So now we in this this thing Vedic this thing, we talked about tangible things. So we talked about longevity, we talked about this thing. Should that be the key goal, or should liberation be the key goal? Which is again a source of lot of debates and so on. This like almost all other religions look at is they at least the modern religions, they don't see like asking for tangible ones as a pursuit doing that. Christianity slightly differs in that thing where you ask for Jesus to heal and so on, whereas in other religions, including in Buddhism or Islam or in Judaism, you don't call God to help you with the matters of our world. Whereas in Vedas, it is meant as a thing where it is liberation path is also pursued, the tangible benefits also pursued. It depends on what state of mental maturity you are in. So there is no single one rule fits all. You cannot again let's be honest to ourselves. Most of us, probably close to nearly all of us, we often live in this world with our so pursuing the careers and wealth and so on. So and almost none of us are at the level of rishi level maturity and so on. So now what do we, rather than forcing ourselves with the liberation goal at this point, get into the religion, start pursuing tangible one. Slowly what the Vedas slowly go into higher and higher layers, where now you from the tangible stuff like health and wealth, you go into world prosperity, and at some point you leave world prosperity alone. You are not going to ask for anything. That is where the liberation goes into the Upanishad part. So the Vedas themselves, they are considered into two big parts: the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. The Karma Kanda is the Samhita part, all the mantras we do chanting, and then the Brahmana part, how do you do the rituals. But then once you do this thing, then we get into the higher layers of knowledge the Aranyakas and Upanishads provide. They go into complex questions, but then it is hard to skip that the foundation rituals and yajnas and go into the higher aspect of knowledge. So you try to go into from the tangibility, and then at some point you get into the intangibility. So this we will look at in the next thing, especially the Prashna Upanishad that beautifully covers these two pursuits. Should I pursue the tangible one, or should I pursue the liberation? Prashna Upanishad sort of balances these two. It gives both these paths, which we will look at in the sort of the next this thing, given that we are out of time. I want to end this thing with this one beautiful sort of Rick that I found it like recently I learned, and something like reflects the Indian culture more than anything else. This is a very last Shuktam of Rig Veda. It is called Aikamatya Suktam. This is sort of like addressed to Agni. And the interesting part is many of these terminologies are like actually something that we can understand today, although the swaras and in the intonations it becomes a little bit harder to understand what they say. But then this particular this Aikamatya Suktam, we have finished all the Vedas. At the end of it, what the Vedic this thing is, there will be different interpretations, there will be different thoughts, because like the Veda is a very large one. And again, we have seen just in this last 1 hour how these different interpretations and thoughts come in. Now, like let there be difference in thoughts, but then let us be one in our pursuit of truth. Let our assembly of people always end in harmony. This is a very, very beautiful part that goes to
Sangatchatvam sambhadadvam sambho manamsi janatam Deva bhakam yatha purve sanjanana upasate Samano mantra samiti samani Samanam manasah chittanesha Samanam mantra abhimantra eva samanena vo bhavisha juhomi Samane bhaakuti samana hridayami vaha Samanamastu homano yatha avasu shahasati Tatchayyorabhregi mahe gatum yajnaya gatum yajnapataye.
sorry, it went into the next one. Okay, so this Aikamatya Suktam, it is very, very short. It is about 30 seconds long. And the goal of this Aikamatya Suktam, like Samani, being able to have one constant, sorry, like my internet connection went. Are you guys able to hear me again?
Yeah, we are able to hear, but your voice is very low.
Okay.
Yes, we're able to hear.
Is it a little bit better?
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay.
Yes, it's better.
So this thing is this is about samanam or samadhi, and this is something that again in Indian languages we use, even in languages like Tamil, which some people see it as very different from the Sanskrit. But then this like having this samayam and as well as like having samadhanam, it is basically having harmony in the society. So we can have different interpretations. We will have different different thoughts. But then when we bring in an assembly, let us actually have a harmonious this thing. So we pray to Agni to actually have this thing in a harmonious way. We will try to have this Aikamatya Suktam 1 or 2 times in the later sessions too. But this is something important element of this Indian philosophy, is that there is no one path or one truth that is said, okay, this is what everyone should follow. There are multiple paths, there is multiple this thing. And then so we will have different interpretations on should I pursue liberation, should I pursue tangibility, should I go for Rigvedic this thing, or should I go for Yajurvedic rituals, or should I go for Mimamsika this thing and then go for the Karma Kanda of Vedas, or should I go for the Vedantic tradition and then focus on Upanishads? We will have different interpretations. Let's have different interpretations, but let us not fight over it. Let us actually figure out a way to channelize our energies together. So this is something I'll end this thing with, and then like we'll have like few minutes of questions before we wrap the session.
Just one thing I wanted to add. like when you were talking about the gods in Hinduism, in the Vedas itself, right? Normally we call gods as our friends, like what sir also was saying. It's a very important thing because in other religions, gods are not like a very friendly type, like especially if you take the Greek or Norse, they're not that type of friendly. They're not like coming near you, sitting with you. They don't have an intimate conversation with you. But in the Vedas itself, the very first mandala, you have extreme intimate relation between Indra and certain rishis. They are like considered as very friends, like how we say Krishna Arjuna. So these rishis have such type of connection with their gods. It's very close relation. So that's why our gods here, that's why every type of problem that we have, we express it to the god because they're like our friends. They're like our fathers, friends, or mothers, anything you can take it. So the gods have a very intimate connection with the humans itself. So that's why all this asking everything we ask for the god itself. It's not that you want materialistic directly, but it's like a friend, like expressing it to a friend also. Because Indra is called so many times as Sakha. It's a famous what is a word used with Indra, a Sakha, Sakha. So that is there.
Anybody with like last set of questions on this thing?
No, I just wanted to ask Surya. Surya mentioned a name at the start of the session. Someone who even Adi Shankara used to like revere a lot. Someone like Bhaskara something
No, I
name.
said Sayanacharya. Bhatta Bhaskaracharya is he was
Bhatta
a great,
Bhaskara.
he was a
Right.
great Mimamsaka, great knowledge in Vedanta. He had all knowledge because he was prior to even Adi Shankara. Adi Shankaracharya didn't exist at that time when Bhatta Bhaskara was there. He was very prior to him. He was from the Andhra side. He was supposed to, when you date him and looking at his name, they tell he is supposed to be a Shaiva, this thing, but he was very good. He knew Mimamsaka, Veda, Vyakarna. If you read his Bhashya, it is not, translation is not available, unfortunately. His Bhashya is only on Yajurveda because he was a Yajurveda Brahmana, Taittiriya, entire Taittiriya Shaka. He gives three interpretations of each verses: Adhyatmika, Vedantic point of view, and the ritualistic point of view. And he's done a very fantastic job. You can say that that's why even Sayanacharya keeps saying that his guru, he considers Bhattavaskacharya his guru. And Bhattavaskara's Bhashya is actually famous. If you see in the Vedic community, it is very famous.
So
Be it on the
Sayanacharya
Rudram.
is, again, his name will come repeatedly. Many of our current understanding of Vedas and how to interpret that comes from Sayanacharya. Again, there is a whole story of how he came into, like he was tasked with this thing. But the Sayanacharya so Sayanacharya is not as much of a philosopher as somebody who is an interpreter, whereas Bhatta Bhaskara is a philosopher who brought in philosophical traditions. In Vedanta school, we see him as like one of the key precursors who brought in this thing. So Adi Shankara was inspired by many of these earlier gurus. But then the difference between Adi Shankara and before gurus is Adi Shankara was able to bring these ideas, but also with the force of his thing into something a larger impact. Whereas the other philosophers, their impact was on their school, but Adi Shankara was able to take their ideas and sort of spread it in a much more wider scale.
And one more thing is Bhatta Bhaskaracharya, we don't know why his Bhashya became less prominent, because if you see the older texts, yes, there are very cross references by Vedic scholars, Vyakarnis and Mimamsakas. There many times have referred to him. We don't know why his Bhashya became less significant. I think mainly it could be the West, because if you see the Sayana Bhashya, there are many faults one can find. I'm not saying Sayanacharya is, I disrespect him or what, but you can find certain mistakes, like certain words he deliberately adds, that is there. And he doesn't give any philosophical much, he doesn't give. Bhattavaskar, what he does, excellently, he gives three meanings. He gives, one is ritualistic view, philosophical view, and the another is Vedantic view. He gives all this. So he's not restricted to only Mimamsa. So that's why Bhattavaskar was a greater person. So, but we don't know why. It could be Mimamsakas themselves did not want to take his, teachings, because what Mimamsakas, actually, if you see the Mimamsa Sutras doesn't have such a thing. Normally, Mimamsakas do not believe there is a Brahman. But Bhatta Bhaskaracharya proves it in his Bhashyas and all. So that could also be a thing that they didn't want him. But his Bhashya, see, one thing is, nobody can refute his Bhashya. You can't find fault in him. You can find fault in Sayana, but you can't find fault in Bhatta Bhaskar. That
So
is the
just
one
one
thing.
thing to add. So there is this like sort of like division in the Vedic tradition between the Mimamsikas and again there were six schools six schools of Astika schools that interpreted Vedas in different ways. Of which a key group is Purva Mimamsa or Mimamsikas. So they saw it primarily in terms of rituals and the karma part of Vedas. So they especially they focused on the samhitas and so they did not go too much into the aspect of Brahman, which comes more into the Upanishad part. The Brahman part of it comes very limited in the Samhita portion itself. So this Purva Mimamsikas are people who use this Vedic devatas and so on, but not too much into Brahman. Whereas the Uttara Mimamsa or like the later Mimamsa, which is called by this name Vedanta. So they again, while the Vedanta people like see the importance of yajnas and the devatas, but they sort of like reduce its importance and go more into the pursuit of Brahman and this thing. So that is where the sort of constant like friction between these two. Should we go into the rituals or should we go into the philosophy? But in terms of current, the size of and the impact of this thing, because of Adi Shankara, the Vedanta school eventually dominated. And in terms of total size, Vedanta is much larger. But in the earlier traditions, the Mimamsa was also very influential.
The reason, one more thing is the reason for decline of Purva Mimamsa or the Shrautas, why we say, is that too expensive to. Because those days kings can fund. Nowadays you can't fund it, because if you see the items when the Purva Mimamsa Sutras, it gives you various items. It can easily go to lakhs and lakhs, and it is very hard work. So it would have been that because of that, and we see that due to Buddhist influence, they did destroy a lot of our Mimamsa. This thing. That's why again, when new Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa itself, when it came after Jaimini, it was a bit different. Though they did preserve the yajna, but their philosophy changed drastically. But we do see a decline of Shrauta rituals due to high expense. It is unfortunate because these yajnas are actually very important for us and very powerful. Like the personal experience, I can say I did feel just by chanting itself has power. The yajnas are even more deeper. So without any fund, it will eventually die out. Whereas all the others, like Sankhya, Tarka, Vaisheshika, Vedanta, Yoga, they are based on philosophy. They don't have much on rituals. Purva Mimamsa completely on rituals. So they are, expensive in that way. We can say it's huge process. So that's why it could have died out.
Involve very expensive things. For instance, in the Taittiriya Samhita, it talks about Iranya Patram Madho. So that is like you bring in the golden vessel and then bring it and it goes for many days, especially the Soma Yajnas and so on. So back in those days, the Brahmins would like sort of like take alms and charity from everyone. They will spend everything in their whatever this thing on this yajnas. So after one yajna, you will be completely devoid of any wealth and things. So think of like weddings. Right now, for weddings, people go and take debt and do this thing. And weddings are much more smaller compared to yajnas. Yajnas run for many more days, invite far more people, and require far more items. So it is like conducting wedding every year, and so it is expensive. People would be turned into poverty at the end of that yajna.
So your question, I would like to answer. Mimamsaka to bring back the yajna parampara. First, we need is people's interest should be there, because no matter what, in the end, if without people's active interest, it is impossible. See, we can tell government should fund, but how much will government also do? Because government, suppose now you can't do. Those just kings, yes, they used to fund. Now people also should come actively, try to revive it, because it is not a very easy thing. If you have seen like how Soma Yaga itself, you can take what sir give an example. It goes on days, and each day you have like in the evening you have such a huge process, and then that Soma juice crushing and collecting. You can't put it in a mixie and make it as a juice. It's a specific thing. The Gravana, you have to first enchant that material with that mantra, then you are supposed to crush. because that is what it is. And the Pavamana mantras are chanted there. It's a very huge process. One thing is we need people studying the Vedas. See, nowadays, I don't want to mean offense to anybody. There's so many so-called Vedic scholars. I won't say they're Vedic scholars. They don't know Sanskrit. That is the worst thing. Many don't know. So even when they interpret, also they give some wrong steps to take place. So we need a proper Vedic scholars. Now Patashalas, if you see, I am from Shaiva, but I'll say one thing. This Kanchi Periyava, what work he has done for the Vedas, it is because of him, we can say the Vedas have increased a bit in India. His, I don't know, contribution to the Vedas is a very good thing, which happened recently. For, you can say, of course, it took place many years ago, but still it is recent compared to. And because of him, you can say at least this Patashalas increased. Because after his preachings, you can see in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, the Veda Patashalas increased. Where they were 5, now it is 200. So such type, we should have encouragement, and it should be active funding too. Because one thing is if you see the traditional following also, it is quite hard, right? Because see, we don't have job opportunities for them. Another one thing, in Vedanta, you can go teaching, you can go to any other field. Mimamsakas, it is a very, I don't know why it declined like that way. It's a very bad thing which happened. So we need job opportunities for them. How many people will do yagna? Imagine. When we do rituals in our house only, we say priest to do it fast or cut it short. We don't give the entire time nowadays also. I've seen this. It's such a huge process, but we don't give time to that. And yagnas are even greater. They're not like Grihya Sutras, which are very small. Yagnas take a lot of practice. And if you don't have job, you spend like almost 20 years to just learn. And you don't get a job, it will be a waste, right? They'll also feel bad. See, of course, those who practice it don't do it out of money. But you have to see from that angle. If they don't get funded, how much can they do? Nowadays, yagnas only mainly temples is the one which funds. And temples also, government takes money nowadays. Now, how much can even temples do? That is one thing. If people actively come together, we want to revive, we will fund, then it would be a very good thing. Because yagnas do take a lot of participation from people. And even if you see the ancient times, it was there that people used to help. It's not just the Brahmana does the work. There are Kshatriyas involved, there are Vaishyas involved in the giving of money, the materials, everything. So these are there. So people's active involvement should be there.
Like groups like ours, so like as we start scaling up more and more, and again, people like there is the Vedic people who are interested in it around the world. And again, if we start pulling in initially our time and money, eventually this large yajnas will happen, and that will sort of boot up the tradition. So once there is yajnas, the thing, so there are people who can afford to spend their time on Vedas. Right now, so like as Surya mentioned, like if you learn the Vedas, you cannot like make a living out of just that thing. So you would have to go for other things. And so until the benefactors and the yajamans start coming in and then supporting, so once that happens, it will boot up this thing. There will be people who can afford to spend time on this thing. So for instance, this is what happened in the Western school of thing with professors. Right now, for instance, in my university, the professors who are out there, they are they need to spend only like few hours of teaching every week. Rest of the time they will be spending their time on the research and any aspect. It is like quite flexible what they can do. So the society pays the money from the tax this thing. So you do whatever you want. Your job is guaranteed for life. We see that you have qualified through all this thing. Now pursue something that is useful for the society. That kind of a thing, like this Western professorships kind of thing, we can give tenure to this Vedic scholars who can do yajnas and continuously. So that part, it was kind of sort of existed in ancient India. If we try to revive that, then this philosophy will start flowing in a much bigger way. One more question, Aishwarya.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. So when you said that the Purva Mimamsa scholars, they did not stress the Brahman aspect much, but more on
Not
the
Brahmana, Brahma,
yeah.
Brahman.
Brahma.
Yeah, Brahmana is a different. We will give a different meaning.
Okay, yeah. So does it mean that they were Nastikas?
No, see, again, this is the problem is people do not know what Nastika means. So, see, in Hindi, we should not take at all what Nastika means. In according to Samskrita, it says Vedanam na angikarvanti tata Nastika. Those who do not accept the Vedas are Nastikas. See, Samkhya doesn't believe in a god. They believe Devas are there, but there is no one Brahman according to Samkhya. But they are Astikas because they take Veda as a pramana. Of course, their interpretation is different, but they are very much valid. Mimamsaka, see, again, like I said, before the Buddhist, that is Jaimini, who is the first person to write the Mimamsa Sutras, the student of Maharshi Vedavyasa, he doesn't go much into Brahman because see, Brahman doesn't serve much purpose when you do yajna. Of course, in the end, even Taittiriya Brahmana says all the yajnas are for him. The Brahma Sukta, I have written an answer about it detailedly. You could check that, anybody could check in the Kyora. But there also it says all the yajnas in the end are for him. This comes in Taittiriya Brahmana, which is a Brahmana text, which is Karmakanda text. So yes, but they didn't go much into Brahman. They gave much importance to Yajna. Because there is a concept in Mimamsaka that Yajna is the only thing that gives you karma phala. It is not Brahman who gives you karma phala. It is Yajna which gives you karma phala is what they believe. So that's why they give much importance to Yajna. They don't reject it. See, Jaimini nowhere says there is no Brahman. It is only the Bhashyakaras after the Buddhist influence said that Mimamsakas like Kumarila Bhatta or Shabara Bhashya, they say there is no Brahman. But Mimamsaka, see, if that was true, then why did Jaimini, who was student of Vyasa, and we know what Vyasa was, so it is impossible. You can see it is only after the Buddhist influence. Even present day Mimamsakas, they don't believe such thing. Most of the Mimamsakas are Shaivas, Vaishyas, Martas, who have a sect, who believe in Brahman. And even like I'm telling you, the greatest, one of the two greatest Mimamsakas, you can say Sayana and Bhatta Bhaskara, they were Mimamsakas, pure Purva Mimamsakas. Bhatta Bhaskara himself, in his very starting introductory verse only, he says, Ishana Sarva Vidyanam Bhutanam Ishwarav Paraha Punato Sarvada Chasman Shabda Brahmatana Shiva. Shiva's entire body is the Vedas, is what he declares. Bhatta Bhaskara. Now, if you really say Brahman is not there, then how can you say such a thing? Because Brahman, if you are accepting that Shiva is Brahman, because Bhatta Bhaskara was Shiva. Take Sayanacharya, he does it for Saraswati, Ganesha, and Maheshwara. So these people, they did very much believe in Brahman. Only only after direct Buddhist influence like Kumarila and all, they didn't believe. And as far as I don't know if it's correct, but I do remember that Kumarila did have such certain type of debate with Shankara and was defeated by him. There was such thing. I don't know if it's true or not because I don't know much about that history. But there is a belief that Shankaracharya did defeat him and then he did accept that he was wrong. So I don't know if it is actually true, but there is no such thing in Jaimini Sutras. You don't get it.
So
That's why I say
one thing I want to add again, the thing that the Astika and Nastika, Surya mentioned, it is not about Nastika is not about believing in God. Nastika is about not believing in the Vedas as the primary way to reach God. So the six Astika schools, including Yoga and Nyaya, these are all like these all believed in Veda. So there's so the Mimamsakas as well as the Vedanta, they all like agree onto the Veda. So our earlier dharmic tradition was about, do you accept Vedas as the primary source of truth? If you accept Vedas as the primary source of truth, then you are considered as a Astika. If you do not accept Vedas as a primary source of truth, but then still like you can accept many parts of Vedas, not Vedas as a whole, and you can believe in the moksha and all the pursuits, then you're considered dharmic, but then dharmic with Nastika. It doesn't mean that you don't believe in God. So that is it is about how central role Veda plays in your thing. Again, when it comes to Brahman, just one more thing. So this Brahman is again this in the Samhita port it comes lesser. So since the Mimamsikas, they see from the Samhita portion, which is the primary mantras. So that's why they talk less about Brahman. It is not about they try to introduce new ideas. It is that, okay, we follow this yajnas. Yajnas are for this Indra, Pushan, Brihaspati, and Agni, and Varuna, and Soma, and so on. So we follow them. It is, and one other way I see, at least from a this thing we can worldly point of view, It is that the way you need to start with rituals to be able to get into higher order of logic. This is from modern neurosciences and so on. This is like
And even one more thing you can say is you don't directly jump to degree, right? You go from first standard, then you finish your 12, then you do a degree, then you can do a PhD. You can say Brahman is type of PhD. To reach there, first you need these devas. To understand these devas, that is what, even if you say this R.L. Kashyap's book, right? He gives that Vyakhyana. It's a very good Vyakhyana, very sensible one, simple. You don't directly jump to Shiva and Vishnu, or even Brahmanaspati, or even Devi. You go from Indra, Maruts, Indras, and you reach these three, because they have a very, those suktas are less so powerful, their suktas are. So you can't directly jump, is what it is.
And rituals as an important one in sort of like the neuroscience portion of it. So this is where the modern science brings in. It is that, so just want to take 1 minute on the neuroscience portion of it. So we have, like, again, to simplify, our brains have the older portions of the brain and the newer portions of the brain. So the older portions of the brain, which have evolved through millions of years, it actually provides for more subconscious this thing. So these are things that are the total size of that memory is small, but they're very, very energy efficient in running that. So for people who are, like, used to driving for years, you can drive without applying your conscious brain this thing, and driving becomes a very, very sort of like easy, simple thing, because you have spent years in making that driving into a ritual. But then the newer portion of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that is actually like fairly unique to humans. It has not evolved through longer time. So that means it is extremely energy inefficient. So the first 2 days of your driving, think of it, you spend so much time and attention trying to look at things. The driving is such a sort of energy intensive process. So the way to convert something from energy inefficient one to energy efficiency is by having rituals. So you try to give the body and the mind something that is done on a regular thing. For instance, brushing. We don't have to even think about when we brush and how we brush. We brush right from this thing. There is no scientific evidence on that you should be brushing in the morning or evening. But the reason why we brush in the morning is it is part of a ritual. We don't have to spend too much brain energy on. The whole idea of rituals in the Vedas is again similar. You are trying to convert something into a repetitive pattern. When you make it into a repetitive pattern, your ability to follow things, your ability to pursue higher order philosophy, it becomes a lot less energy intensive. So it is like driving after a few years. You can drive without paying close attention. You can drive with music in your ears and so on, and still you'll be able to safely drive. That's the point of view of Mimamsikas. Is you start with rituals, you do the ritual well enough that your pursuit of philosophy becomes like fairly automatic. Whereas for those of us who have tried to read Vedanta right away, we directly jump into it without any ritual background, you might find it fairly harder to follow. So you might, for 2 days, it might provide some interesting idea, but then third day you would not be able to follow that Brahman or this thing. So because you don't have any ritual to back it up. This is why Adi Shankara brought in all that Vedanta thing, but still is Adi Shankara school. They also emphasize on Mimamsa. They also emphasize on the ritual portion of it, because the last couple of decades we have understood from neuroscience also is these rituals are actually quite useful to set a pattern, to sort of move something from the energy expensive prefrontal cortex to the fast brain, that is the older brain, which is like a lot less energy intensive. So you can see this from different angles.
And even all the sampradayas, right? They give both importance to Vedantic view and even the Mimamsic view, because you can't say one is better than the other. Both have their own benefits. You can't always think of liberation, right? Because it's not, you can't just get liberation by just thinking. You have to do some work, you have to do some effort, you have to put. So both go in hand. And this is only the modern, the latest thing that these two also again are fighting. You go see Bhattavaskar, best example. Such a old time he was, and there is no fight between them. He doesn't condemn Vedanta. He is a Mimamsaka. Why does he not condemn? They're both always in hand. You can't separate one from the other. It is impossible. Even Sanacharya says, for the work that is Jnana Kanda, sorry, for Karma Kanda, it is Aranyaka, Brahmana, and Samhita. For knowledge you want, you take Upanishads. He doesn't again say which is better. He gives both. And that is up to us, which we have to choose. Because in the end, you, of course, you read both and which you get attracted to, you, what do you say? You choose it. For me, it has always been the Karma Kanda because I like the Yajnas, something which is very attractive to my eyes. So that is, it depends. Each person have. Vedanta is quite, what is popular nowadays.
One final question, and then we'll close it. It's already quite past time. So this RSKMA, I don't know.
Yes, it's me. Good morning, everyone. So I want to say is that I hope we will have a discussion even on Nasdiya Sukti also, because I think it contradicts with Vedas, because it actually, questions the existence of God and universe. So that's what I wanted to ask.
We could keep, okay, I would like to talk about this. We could keep it next, but technically, if you see, it doesn't contradict. You see the Western, see, I will again blame this for them. Deliberately, when you want, you can't just translate it and leave it in half. You have to give an explanation. See, some mantras, they just stop in half. It is according to our common sense, we get to know what it means. See, if I just, I don't know what example I'll give. Next time when you have this meet, I can tell that. The Nasadiya Sukta itself, it goes in hand with the Purusha Sukta. It goes in hand with what actually the Puranas, actually, whatever the mainly things you get from Puranas, you get that basis from the Nasadiya Sukta itself. We could have a huge discussion, but if you see, only one line which the foreigners always take, you don't have a God, you didn't believe in a God initially, is that last line. Yadi Veda, now what is, I forgot that verse. Anga Veda, something it comes. Yovana Veda, it comes like that. But that is the only one thing they take and they turn it in spirals and don't give a proper explanation. And I don't normally take their Vyakhyana. Samkhya does take this, only this. Samkhya only does this. But if you see, other than Samkhya, all the other five did believe in Ishvara. Ishvara is not your Shiva. Ishvara means normally Brahman, which we say. And they use Ishvara as a term. Normally, all these darshanas. All these darshanas did believe in Ishvara. Were they so stupid that they couldn't understand this one verse? So no, they give their explanation. Like some give, no, it here means that in advance he didn't know that he will be creating the universe. That is one of the Vyakhyanas given. So we can't say that just because one, what you say, this one line you can't, without reading all the other interpretations, we can't. What happens is normally, I won't blame anybody, but normally what happens is when we read the translation, right? Normally we take from the Western sources. It's a very big problem. And I have a lot of problem with them. Even many Vedic scholars have a lot of problem with them. Because their translations do not give much of the essence. You can take the very first Agnimila itself, they give horribly. The meaning itself is very distorted.
So the
So it is there. So
the problem, Surya, is that see, the Vedas are so big and this thing. So they especially like Muller and Griffith and all, they had a particular task like in a limited time, because the East India Company wanted like in a sort of like a crash course on understanding Indians. So they had to come from an outside tradition and they had to translate everything. And if you try to translate everything, then the problem is you do a very, very limited job. So that their purpose was not to make like a very compelling thing for all Vedas. It is to help the company and eventually the British Raj understand what's going on, what is this tradition that people are having. So you can use some of this thing as a sort of like what.
But there is one problem that arises is, like I keep bringing this one thing, you can get to know the caliber or the deliberate mistakes what they make, because it's a very clear word. I had written on this a huge thing too. In the 8th mandala, 33rd sukta, the last line, sorry, last second, it is the 16th verse, you get a word called as Raghu. And Raghu in every kosha, Nirukta, everything means very quick and fast. Deliberate, and this is in context to a woman. Indra says woman's intellect is fast. Now you can see this problem with the Westerners is anybody who knows Sanskrit, even the Western scholars who know Sanskrit know this because they have translated the Amarakosha, they have given for Vachaspatyam. But then when it came to this, they made Laghu, they made the word Raghu, which is there in the Samhita and even which is there in the Padapata, as Raghu, which means low and slow. So this itself shows that their mistakes were deliberate. See, I can understand certain words very difficult to understand, but this Raghu is very clear. So what I personally feel is when you look at the translations, right, the caliber matters because these people could translate Kalidas's work very well. They could which is very complex in Sanskrit terms compared to this one verse. This verse is very simple. The swaras also don't give a different meaning. So what I think is and we should also not read this. I can understand Westerners reading their translations. We should not give much importance to their vyakhyana is what I believe, because there are very much mistakes you can find that you see, if you just read T.H. Griffith's translations or Wilson's, you won't find Vedas that attractive. And if you see the Vyakhyanas and Bhashyas, it is very interesting how each people give a different view. So that's why I personally always recommend not to read theirs. That's why when this thing came of Nasadiya, does God exist or did he not know that he itself created it, is mainly from their view. And people who are influenced by them. But if you see actually from the this traditional scholars view, it doesn't come like that. Rather, the traditional scholars view, they can give you very compelling answer that no, there is a God there. What is this sukta meaning? What is this last word? What is it trying to say? That they give it very beautifully because we know Sanskrit better. It is our language. That is my only thing. Some things, okay, you can take. Like some works, I will appreciate. Griffith has done a very good job in certain places. Like the Keshi Sukta, he's done a very excellent job. But many places, deliberate mistakes, not mistakes which happen because they're hard. Easy words, you make a deliberate mistake, it is very bad thing. Personally.
So we will try to like wrap this meeting again. Questions on this thing can use the Slack channel. We will try to make it as a regular thing, hopefully a weekly thing, so we can go deeper because again, Vedas is massive. Like it is, we have touched upon like probably like a 0.001% of what is there. So
and that too, we have only done till now only one sukta of Rig Veda. There are 4 Vedas, so many suktas.
Absolutely.
So it's a huge thing.
And this sukta is also fairly easy one again. So we did not have to go into a much more complex one. So it started with something simpler. But then there are far more complex one again, where it's more interpretation like Nasadiya Sukta or Purusha Sukta. Purusha Sukta again relatively simple, but Nasadiya Sukta again it starts introducing a question. Again, the thing to understand about Vedic people is they were not against the doing questions. So even things that you know for sure, even if you know about God well, you will still question whether God is thing. It is part of the cultural tradition. So Vedas are, you should not be seeing it in scriptures and other this thing where it is giving a definitive one. For example, Bhagavad Gita, it gives a definitive one. This is what it is. There is no question about this thing. Whereas Vedas are not supposed to be that way. It is supposed to have these questions coming in that shows the tradition of that time. So it doesn't mean that the person who wrote it doesn't believe in God. It is that they want to make it as a question so that the answer comes in the right next chapter.
And complex suktas, like if you take Asya Vamasya, it has 50 verses. It's extremely complex. Simple to means if you just take the normal meaning, there's nothing much to it. But this Asya Vamasya Sukta is the basis for Vedanta in the Samhita Pata, because there only you get the first mention about the relation between Jivatman and Brahman. The 2 birds, which one bird just eats the fruit, the other just sees. This is present in this Asya Vamasya Sukta. So it is very important. There are many important suktas. See, if you see Yajurveda and Sama, Atharva Veda, some parts, they're very easy to understand because you can connect with them. But there are certain parts in Rig Veda which are highly philosophical and very difficult to understand, like Asya Vamasya. Atharva Veda, if you take the Skambhalinga Sukta, which we say, they are very difficult. Or even the Vratya Sukta, which we say, that is the entire 15th khanda of Atharva Veda, they're highly difficult. So this what sir said. This Anobhadra is the easiest among all the suktas. Anobhadra and Samanya Sukta, or any other different names it's known as, the last mantra, which we heard. These are very easy ones. Yeah, Aikamatya, sorry. These are very easy ones. And this only we took like, see, 1 hour. Just to Ano Bhadra itself, 1 hour it became. And that is only almost 10 verses, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Just 10 verses. And
Just
fact
imagine.
simple, language is simple, the concepts are simple.
Yeah.
It's just a sort of
Now
like a
if-
gentle introduction into Vedas.
Now, if you take Vishnu Sukta, right, you get a lot of details. You can ask why is there certain differences, but it is very interesting. Vishnu Suktas are very interesting if you see. Rudra Sukta, it's a even more huge thing, but it is easier to understand. But again, there's a huge deep thing. You can see that the concepts in Puranas, what people keep saying, Puranas and Vedas, they are against each other. That gets destroyed with these Rudra Suktas, with these Vishnu Suktas. They're very deep, though very only there are 5 suktas for Shiva and Vishnu in the entire Rig Veda. All these 5 is extremely deep and very important. So you have a lot of this thing, and Vyakhyanas of Indra. What is Indra? He's an electromagnetic force according to some modern Vedic scholars. What type of force does he represent? There are very things, and they're actually very nice. Because Indra, you get that certain type of proof saying, yes, he is a force. Any type of forces, Indra is there. So you have all these details. One God as just a physical figure, God as spiritual, what does he mean? And God as what is his, duty. These 3 things also you can go deep, you can talk hours and hours and hours. Very interesting.
Okay.
I'm sorry to take the time.
No worries. Thank you guys all. So we ran like double our time, but hopefully it was useful. So you can like bring in more questions and feedback on the Slack channel. We'll try to sort of keep refining as we go along. This is just a first session. Hopefully we have like hundreds of more sessions to go. Thank you guys.
Thank you. I think somebody has raised their hand. You could, if it's a small question, you could ask. If it's a bigger one, you just put in the Slack thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
can we put in just the Slack part and then do this thing? So just in the interest of time.
Okay. Namaskar.